Princess Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank have done a kind of conventional thing in announcing the baby that has just been born to them, a son, via Buckingham Palace, but equally posting a black and white image on Instagram. And that very much seems to be cut from the Harry and Meghan mould of, on one hand, trying to share personal news, but then on the other, protect their privacy and that of the baby by not showing a full picture of the child. As 10th in line to the throne, there isn't as much pressure on a royal like Princess Eugenie to engage in a lot of publicity compared to somebody like the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, for instance. So she is in a quasi-private role. However, because her father's office, when he was still a working royal, is part funded by the taxpayer, there is this expectation from the public that they do share the news and share the information quite widely. And that is why we've seen Buckingham Palace step in and issue the formal birth announcement. What's interesting, I think, is that this black and white image of two hands holding a little infant's hand doesn't really tell the public much about the baby, what the baby looks like. Has the baby got a full head of hair? There has been a departure, I think, from that kind of traditional royal image of a baby in its mother's arms posing outside the venue that it's been born. That has changed, and maybe we can say that there is a Harry and Meghan effect to that, because if even Prince Harry, who's much further up the royal pecking order than the likes of the York daughters, decides to keep Archie very much under wraps, maybe we should just accept that royals further down the pecking order are going to be even more private than their predecessors. I think we can say that the Sussexes blazed a trail when it came to ownership of their own information and very much using social media as an organ of communication rather than channeling everything through the traditional route of the Buckingham Palace press office. And equally, this idea of just posting quite cryptic shots of babies rather than a full facial image is very much cut from Harry and Meghan's cloth. Whether further on along the line we're going to get a family photo of Eugenie, Jack and the baby in arms remains to be seen. It's highly unlikely that this child will have any title, and that very much follows in Princess Anne's mould of insisting that the Queen doesn't grant titles on her children because she wanted Zara and Peter Phillips to lead ordinary lives. So we will see that kind of dilution. On one hand, you have a grandchild to the second son of the Queen, so you'd think about that and think, well, actually that child is quite senior, but when you're talking about someone who's beyond 10th in line to the throne and further down the pecking order, that isn't really high in the seniority stakes anymore. As a granddaughter of the Queen, Princess Eugenie obviously knows that there is a need for the public to see major events in her life, and people will look back to her wedding at Windsor Castle and say, well, the taxpayer paid for that, so actually in return we wouldn't mind seeing pictures of your firstborn child. But on the other hand, there's going to be very much this Harry and Meghan influenced idea of actually keeping private matters as private as possible and only giving the public an inkling as to what children look like, because I suppose the further you open the door, the more your own children end up being public property.